and there we are. So, okay, Beth, we're up on both streams, and good morning, and an amazing morning to everybody. I know it's been a little while. Welcome to the Freedom Coffee live stream, and I am half dead. I've been so sick. It's one of those things where you're on the road and you're thinking, okay, got my schedule mapped out. Everything's great. I'll get back to Toronto. I'm going to have 4 days of just hardcore working through stuff, 4 days going to the gym, 4 days, all that sort of stuff. And then get out on the road again because I already have an appointment to go to in Boston next week. So I arrive, arrive back, relatively late on Thursday, not too late, like, I don't know, 9 o'clock or something like that. And drop my truck off, get in the car, drive an hour back into the city because, of course, we need traffic 24 hours a day in Toronto now. I walk into my place, and as soon as I put my bag down, take my jacket off, hang it up, I do the, uh-oh, I didn't eat any sandpaper. Why is there sandpaper in my throat? Oh my God, no, please. And well, I was down and out for the count. I took down some NyQuil, no matter what, and tried to work through things for the past couple of days. And I don't know about you. Good morning, Megan. When I'm sick, I try to run at full speed, but I'm maybe 30% efficient, and it's just been a struggle trying to get through stuff. But today I am less dead, so I apologize for postponing yesterday to today. Yesterday I had a meeting, and even the people I was having meetings with were like, "You don't look great," and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't feel great." But anyways, life could always be worse, and every day is a gift. We got to appreciate what we got, right? So please like, share, subscribe. I appreciate all of you who are coming in here. I posted in the Discord. I know it's been a few weeks. There's going to be lots of changes coming over this quarter and probably first quarter of 2025. I will share more about that coming soon. At some point, these things will be actually more consistent. But because of a couple of schedules that I have to juggle for multiple projects, it makes it a little bit difficult. Good morning, Canadian Bella. Morning, Lisa. The first person to ever read this book, Honking for Freedom. She read it in the very first day. And by the way, Christmas is coming. I'll be posting some links out there. There might be the ability to purchase this with Bitcoin for this season. We're just kind of working out the deal right now and a few other things. So there you go. Rocky is not here. He's with his girlfriend. Okay, Rocky has a girlfriend. Good for him. I hope I wish him all the best. I hope he ties the knot, and it's something for the long term. All right. So much has gone on since we last spoke. I can't go through everything, but a few little highlights, for myself and for all of us who are, the sort of pro-freedom, more sovereign individuals that just want to see some practicality or not in the kind of the echo chambers of the political party partisanship. That doesn't mean we don't have friends in camps, but, we don't participate in that necessarily. So I released or re-released, we released season 2 of Open College with Stephen Hicks. Episode 57 just came out last week, which was about Kant, Immanuel Kant. Does Kant matter? It's actually quite fascinating if you're into history and philosophy, which I wish more people would be, because then they wouldn't be so scared about how the world is operating right now and become a lot easier to predict. Highly recommend it. So check it, search online anywhere, Open College with Stephen Hicks. And episode 58 will be out, I believe, next week sometime. So that will be it's in production. It's actually post-production right now and all that sort of stuff. So that's done. I was in Boston last week? Mass adoption with the guys there. So big shout out to the group, Jeff and Phil and the rest of them at Mass Adoption. Really good people, wonderful people. We had a small group of people of, I don't know, 50 people, something like that. And we talked about, positivity, persuasion, reaching people you disagree with, and kind of dropping some toxicity. There are certain times where friction is important, but it's not always justified. So myself, Larry Lepard, David Foley, basically were a panel. We were kind of limited with the technology that we had, trying to do a fireside chat, but it was really great. I think they're going to release it sometime soon. I'm also going to be in Montreal for a Bitcoin meeting in Montreal on November the 7th. So if you're in the Montreal area, come on out. I'll probably give a talk for, I'm assuming, 15 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes. And it'll be a lot of fun to get to meet some of the people out there who we've been wanting to get together for some time. I did meet with some people the last time I was there for the Canadian Bitcoin Conference. Some of us were not able to get together, so hopefully this will make up the difference. I've been putting out more regular articles to my Substack, which have made it to a couple other publications, one of which is Zero Hedge, is probably the biggest. So I think I had three or four articles on Zero Hedge since the last time that we've done a live stream. So check that out. Also, an episode of Unhypnotized. I want to help Heather and the team at CoinBeast, who we had a fascinating conversation about communicating to people, and it was very funny. She said, like, towards the end, she's like, "Oh, this was so good. I was worried this was going to be political." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I hate politics. Unfortunately, right now, everything is so politicized that it always enters into conversations. But I much prefer conversations that aren't political, to be entirely honest." And so we had a great talk. So check it out on Hypnotized. And I'm going to be on Block Rewards next week. I have a talk on December 1st in Florida. I think the event's going to be in Boca Raton, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll be down there for a little bit. And now we're trying to figure out plans for El Salvador. And then January 17th, I will be speaking at the Bitcoin conference in Medellin, Colombia, which is kind of surreal. A place I first moved to 21 years ago was the first time I was there. I have lots of friends in Medellin, and I know the city like the back of my hand. And it's going to be great to be down there and to speak. So if you want to be really adventurous, grab a ticket and come down to Medellin, Colombia, if you're able to, in the middle of January, and we'll hang out. It'll be lots of fun. All right. So the Open College is a podcast I do with Stephen Hicks. It's a lot of his prepared podcasts and stuff that he's put together over the years. It's part of a broader program that I've been putting together for a number of years, despite some hiccups in it, and COVID was one of the main causes of some of those hiccups. But I posted an article explaining that in my Substack, and I mentioned Not on Record, which is going to be airing an episode tonight at 8 o'clock, and Open College, and a few other things that are relevant, part of a broader strategy, similar in the vein of, the Freedom Convoy, which was about bringing people together from, not the people who are trapped in the echo chambers of the extremes. Like, you're never going to reach those people because they treat, their philosophical or political worldview as a team sport, right? It's, I'm on this team or you're on that team, and no matter what my team says, it's always good and your team is always bad. Those are the people who are really the loudest right now. And I think that's going to run its course. And in the vacuum, in the space, I think there's opportunity for many of us to find common ground. That's kind of the framing of the Freedom Convoy, how I was trying to a message around it, and just continuing that process through a series of different platforms. So I think I've spoken enough about Open College. All right. Trump was on Joe Rogan. What do you think? So I watched it from my deathbed yesterday. and managed to get through it over with a couple of breaks and stuff like that. It's 3 hours long, and it's really quite fascinating. My guess is Trump on Joe Rogan is going to be the number one most downloaded podcast in history, is my guess. I'm thinking probably a billion downloads across all platforms, whether it be YouTube and Spotify and all that stuff. I think it's just going to be ubiquitous, and it's going to be absolutely everywhere. I thought one of the most fascinating things about it, if you noticed about halfway through or maybe three quarters of the way through, that you see all of Trump's skills in communicating to people. So he's not the reason Vivek Ramaswamy has so much value, because Vivek does the best job as explaining Trump to other people, right? He's really persuasive from the sales perspective, but when it comes to communicating the nuance, he's not the greatest at that, right? Because he tries to communicate broad strokes. I think that's just the strategy, right? So when you ask him for specific concrete examples, he keeps it, from a generalized perspective. And that's a strategy. But for some of us, especially on certain topics, you want to know the specifics, which is what Vivek does. So I think that was the only weakness. But you see the real strength in his ability to communicate once right about halfway, or maybe 2/3 the way through. You notice he starts interviewing Joe Rogan, right? He starts asking Joe Rogan about his story and his history with MMA and all that sort of stuff as a commentator. And it was fascinating. You saw, at least from my perspective, his ability to connect with somebody and bring them completely over to their side by finding common ground, which is a persuasion tactic. I've talked about here many times before. I've mentioned it in some speeches that I've given, that you never persuade people with facts, but you do persuade people using the many different strategies of communication to reach people. And that's a perfect example, a textbook example of finding common ground and pacing and leading, right? So he started interviewing Joe, asking about his personal story about something that Joe Rogan's really passionate about, right? And it was fascinating to watch. I suggest everybody who wants to learn how to reach people, that's something to watch, because it's amazing. Anyways, and I also suggest that, I know many of you have people in your families, friends, colleagues, in your networks who don't like Trump because they've bought into all the fake narratives around him, the smears, all that sort of stuff. You should send them that interview. And so you send them that interview and say, yeah, you won't believe what happens in this interview, and just send it to them that way. And maybe you can pique their curiosity and get them to watch it. Because I think it really humanizes him, especially the very beginning. Hold on one second. I told you I'm sick. In the very beginning, it was Joe Rogan asked him about what was it like going to the White House the first time when you were after he was elected. He had been there before, obviously, through business for business reasons, but and he explained the surreal experience of being in the White House for the first time. Again, when it comes to articulating the nuance, not the greatest, but he does it well enough that you see that even he, who everybody, they try to smear him as, known for his ego, when he's actually quite self-deprecating. But he explains that it was clearly some sort of humbling experience for him to walk into the White House having won the election. Like, he was clearly as surprised as anybody. And I think he humanizes anybody when you have a humbling experience. That part of the interview was almost as good as when Elon Musk interviewed Trump and asked him about the assassination. They did it, the assassination attempt, the first one. They did it in a Twitter space, and it was really fascinating. Trump's not the greatest at getting you into his frame, but he's good enough that I think it impacts people a lot and it humanizes him. So I would suggest sending that interview to anybody, and I think the hook will be in the very beginning of the clearly humbling experience of being elected, surprisingly, and ending up in the White House. Beth says, I need to step away from X for a bit too. Yeah, she says, I'm finding X has become more negative, too much politics, perhaps because of the people I follow. Very interesting. So uh, I think we're all seeing that there's a shift there. We understand the goal of greater free speech and a lack of censorship is great, although I do question that. So I've been posting. Obviously, I've had a Substack for quite some time, but I've been utilizing Substack Notes, which is basically the Twitter equivalent. So Substack is a blog, and Twitter and Substack Notes are microblogs. And I've been A/B testing both Substack Notes versus Twitter/X, and I got to tell you, there is significantly more throttling on X. It's crazy because the engagement is so much higher on Substack, and it's not like I have years of history. Like I've been on Twitter since 2009, and I didn't use it for a bunch of years. It was really I was using it more just to promote the podcast and promote other people. But then, once Freedom Convoy happened, and I kind of used it as part of the strategy when I was running my account and the Tamara Leach account. By the way, if you loved Tamara's messages during the Freedom Convoy, that's because that was me. But that's when I really started using Twitter for the first time, intensively, shall we say. And it's just shocking. I have a whole bunch of reasons. I'll explain at some point as I continue to do the A/B testing and things I found out over time. I'm not sure how many people are using it. I think it might be mostly bots at this point. I think too many people have, and it's not because of Twitter or Elon. I think it's because of COVID is over, lockdowns are over, and people have just gone back to their lives, so they're not engaged as much online. And add that to the growing vitriol that you see, and that people, you see the emergence of the woke right now, see the woke left and the woke right. So now people are just either extremes and are not listening to each other, and the rest of everybody else gets kind of trapped in the middle. And I guess that's just driving people away. I've had so many people saying, "Yeah, I've had enough of Twitter, or I've had enough of social media." I have Gilliam. What's up, man? Sorry, Gilliam. It's sound like Jennifer. Guillaume. I have you on notification on X. I never see your posts otherwise. Yeah, exactly. And I think there are some political reasons for that. Actually, I know there are political reasons for that, but I'll get more into that over time. And it's really interesting. So there's a guy a journalist, who he he was leaked the document on JD Vance that what the Trump campaign was considering with him, and apparently, I don't know, the left thought it was damaging. I thought, okay, just politics is normal. It doesn't change my mind, but okay, fine. And he posted it to Twitter, and he got a warning that he had included some detailed personal information, which he claims he overlooked. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But he made some changes to the piece, removed all the information that was personal and sensitive information, reposted it in conjunction with what Twitter's demands were, and then his account was completely suspended. Now, I give Elon credit, or the team at X who's running Twitter, I give them credit because they eventually reinstated him after a week or so. But it just goes to show you that, there are certain things that are still curated, and that might just be bloatware from the software from prior. It might have nothing to do with the people there. But I think just people are getting a little tired of the toxicity of the past. I don't want to say 4 years. I want to say since like 2012. And people are moving beyond that and trying to get more into a more enlightened space of trying to hear and understand each other. It doesn't mean there won't be friction. And I personally think friction is good, right? Especially if you can prove kind of your interpretation of the world. But anyways, so my all of that to say, Substack Notes has been nowhere near as throttled, or I don't want to say censorious, but throttled as Twitter is. And I highly recommend it. And you're still getting a divergence of opinions there, which is good. And I hope it continues. So check out Substack Notes. Oh, and Guillaume, by the way, I don't know if you heard when I started, I am going to be speaking in Montreal on November the 7th. So I'll send you the details and information when I get it. And be great if you can come out and if you have anybody else that would like to attend. All right. Next thing, one of my articles that was picked up by Zero Hedge and posted there was Fortifying the 2024 U.S. election was the name of the article. If you search online, you'll find it. It's really fascinating. So when I was flying back, I mean, you all know that I go to Florida a lot. I have been most of my life and have lots of friends there. My best friend is there and, have kind of roots there, if you will. And I went to Florida before Florida was cool. How about that for a hipster interpretation? And it's annoying that everybody's going to Florida. It's like, no, go away. Go back. Florida used to be quiet. Used to be nice. Now it's all New Yorkers. It's like, oh, come on. Get out of here. We need one more good hurricane. Anyways, I'm just joking, people. Relax, right? But anyways, on a trip back from Florida, I logged on to the airplane Wi-Fi. And I don't know, now I'm starting to forget. Was it in the airport first or on the airplane first? I can't remember. But anyways, I tried to log on to Wi-Fi. And the very first thing I got was, when you log on to a public Wi-Fi, sometimes you have to watch a commercial. Well, in this case, I had to watch this commercial for some organization. And, I wish I wrote down the name here. I forget the name of the organization. It's an organization. It was, citizens. It's for American citizens that live in Canada who want to vote in the U.S. The U.S. election. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm just going to call it up on my Substack, and because I want it's actually quite. I don't know if you'd say interesting or disturbing. Maybe it's from your own perspective. It depends on where you're coming from. But the name of the organization is Center for U.S. Voter Abroad Turnaround Project. That's not a government organization. Oh, it's an NGO. Oh, well, there's nothing dodgy in NGOs anymore, right? NGOs are all straight. So, and then I took some snapshots and was following this for some time. This was now several months ago. I think this was during the summer, the first trip I came back or whatever it was. So this is going back, I think in July is when this started, if I'm not mistaken. And over time, you saw it was clearly getting momentum, meaning money, donations for this organization that, I don't know, is it registered as an NGO or a PAC, or is it just, whatever? One of the spokespersons was, if you remember Seinfeld, Julia Louis-Dreyfus who is disappointingly a Democratic whack job. Doesn't really care about policies. It just thinks communism is great. What's wrong with these people? Does nobody know anything about history? It's infuriating. Anyways, whatever. Going out, the champagne socialists are pushing communism again. All right. And some of the people that are on the board of this non-governmental association that's going to get Americans to vote were Alex Cristobal, or is Cristobal Alex? I don't remember which one it is. But anyways, he's a former deputy White House secretary in the Biden administration. So he's one of the board members. Ari Steinberg, a Silicon Valley investor, got to be conservative, sure, who invested in Airbnb and Facebook. Anna Galland, a former executive director at the Radical Political Action Committee, MoveOn.org. I think that's one of the Soros organizations. Those are the board members of this organization that's going to help Americans vote in the election. And I stumbled across this article in the Gateway Pundit. Scott Adams had talked about it about a month ago or something like that, just around the same time when it came out. And according to this organization, they're looking for 9 million votes. They want to secure 9 million votes from Americans who live abroad. The problem is, according to even Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who says they want to get 9 million votes of a potential pool of 2.8 million votes. Right, so they're stealing it right in front of them. How do you get 9 million votes from 2.8 million people? Is this exactly what it looks like? This is how they're going to try to steal the election again? Okay, I understand what that means. Tao, I'm confused what that means, brother. It's good to see you, man. So how do you get 9 million of less than 3 million votes? That's a problem, right? And, there are so many things that have occurred since, all the legal battles from the last election. There's the Fulton County, the one at Fulton County had a batch of votes, 900 votes that came in together, of which 100% of them were for Biden. Like, that would make Kim Jong-un jealous, right? Like, he can't get 100% of the vote. Either could Saddam Hussein. But, there's batches that are coming in 100%. Like, that's not mathematically possible. Anybody who's been part of a campaign or run a political campaign, that is not mathematically possible. 100% is like 75%. That's, anyways, for a whole bunch of reasons. So, and then we're seeing in jurisdictions across the U.S. that recently they're changing the process for some of the for the election. Georgia has changed many of the regulations around its voting process, but they said 2020 was perfect. If 2020 was perfect, why are they changing the election process? You got to pick one. Either it was flawed and it needs to be changed, or it was perfect and there's no need for change. Which one is it? You can't suck and blow at the same time, but whatever. Up is okay. Sorry. Anyways, my concern, and I think everybody's concern right now, my concern when I was on that plane was, okay, here we go again. Now it's the latest scam from the leftists, how they can rig an election. Like, guess what? You're not going to win every election. Sometimes the other side's going to win. Sometimes they're going to be more popular. Sometimes people are just going to be bored of you and they want change. Like, that's it, right? Anyways, the article that all of this came from. Oh, and the other thing is, when you see like examples of, a batch of 900 votes come in and 100% is for Biden. And that's like one documented case in the court records, but there's many other examples of that across the US. I just lack the time. I need to lay out all of them because I got other things in my life. But I thought the US was split 50-50. How is the US split 50-50 if one candidate in a county gets 100% of the vote? That's not 50-50. Like, this just basic logic. So anyways, the article is called, wow, Barack Obama's former Canadian ambassador reveals Zoom call with Hollywood celebrities and social media influencers to discuss undetectable way to steal the 2024 election. So check that out. Okay, I hope that works. All right, Tao, what have you been saying? You've been saying the only NG. Oh, I see. Is yes. So according to what Tao is saying here, the only up and up NGO is the one run by Andy No, the journalist who was going after Antifa. And yes, I would agree with that assessment. Andy No does very very good work. There was a county somewhere where 100% of military absentee ballots came in from Biden. Yeah, exactly. I thought the country was split 50-50, right? I thought like it's such, but what are you going to do? People, it's really funny how few people in the world actually want truth. Most people just chase confirmation bias. It doesn't matter if you're left or you're right, whatever. You chase the solidification of your worldview, and you can't diverge away from that no matter what. And if so, they slip into, we've talked here before about the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, but we'll talk more about that another time. All right. The part that's probably going to upset some of you, but, again, friction is good because we need to understand each other's perspectives. Israel finally attacks Iran. So Iran, 3 weeks ago or something like that, launched ICBMs, this time directly from Iran at Israel. Now, what's frustrating for me has been, and for many of us, has been I tried to show people during this period that the news is fake, that you're the product and all you're being sold is lies by omission. That's how news works, right? And there's a whole bunch of series of reasons for that. NGOs, competing interests, foreign interests, money, corporate interests, whatever. But what I was trying to communicate to is that the news has always been fake. It's never been real. I'm sorry if you thought when you were watching Peter Mansbridge in the 1990s and watching CBC, if you thought that was real, you have a low-level understanding of how the world works. That was not real either. It was never real. The news has never been real. Now it's just kind of gone into overdrive. Now it's supercharged fake. Now the news has become like the Inquirer. It used to be distortion of the facts, lies by omission, that sort of thing. Now it's just blatant fabrication from nothing. So one of the things, for example, is people misunderstand about Israel is from a Westerner. It's not about religion. Support for Israel for many people is not about, religious groups. It's about Western values, that Israel is Western values in the region. That's what Israel represents. 70% of the country is secular. There's a reason women serve in the military with men as well because of conscription, because they have no choice, right? So it is a very egalitarian Western country, and that's a big part of the reason that there is friction from the other side. It just so happens that those values are built on, the right of return of the people which the land is named after. Okay, fine. We'll talk more historical stuff in at a later date. I don't want to get into the weeds too much because people get lost and confused. But the reality is what we see with the Gaza Strip, which was handed over, 20 years or 30 years after the Sinai was handed over? Like the whole Sinai Desert was captured by Israel in 1967. It was in the 6-Day War they captured the Sinai. And that basically doubled the size of Israel. And they gave it back, right? They keep giving stuff back. And no matter what, the rockets never stop. And after Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2006, I believe it was, days after, the reason they gave Gaza over because they thought, firstly, obviously there was friction, and Israel had to pull out its own people out of Gaza who didn't want to leave. but it was a very contentious issue at the time. But the idea was, well, they always say, just give us land for peace. Give us land for peace. Okay, fine. Give you land for peace. They got the Gaza Strip, and that was an agricultural center. And the idea was take all the greenhouses and farms and agricultural center, and you could build an economy. We'll trade with you and engage in economic development of the region, and then you'll build autonomy over time. The solution by the people who were there was just to burn everything and bring in Iranian rockets and start firing them into Israel. So yeah, I remember when I was there in what was it, 2000, 1999, and the people there told me about the Karshutim, the rockets that regularly flew into Israel from Lebanon and from the southern part of Israel. Like the rockets are not something new. They didn't start on October 7th. It's been going on for decades of the rockets coming in. That's why there's a big buffer zone between Lebanon and Israel. So, anyways, it's a whole broader conversation, but it's really fascinating to see cucked Westerners who claim to be supporters of freedom, individual rights, that sort of thing. Like what we were protesting for in Ottawa, yet they will cuck to religious collectivism in this oppressor versus oppressed worldview. It's astounding. It's shocking to see how people can be so distorted in their brain of think that they're pro freedom, but then they cuck for the collectivist extremists. Like you can't be pro freedom and a communist at the same time. I'm sorry. The level of cognitive dissidence is absolutely shocking. So, anyways, the multi-front war now, Gaza and then Lebanon, which was Hezbollah. These are all Muslim Brotherhood organizations. This is why you see in my tweets, I always talk about the Muslim Brotherhood. This is where it comes from. This is, Hassan Abana, Saeed Qutb. This is their worldview that has basically captured much of the momentum in the Middle East. And that's why when you hear like most of the victims from extremism are people who are Muslim, that's why. It's from these people. It's from the Brotherhood people, from Hezbollah, Hamas, ISIS, Jamaat Islami in Pakistan, and there's a whole list of organizations. Yet the pro-freedom people will side with the cucked pro-freedom people, will side with the collective extremists against Western values. Like, what is wrong with people? It's so shocking. It just goes to show you can brainwash people into believing anything, right? Anyway, so Hezbollah, they got rid of Nasrallah finally, and Nasrallah Part 2, Nasrallah Part 3. They just kept taking them all out. And then finally they responded to Iran's ICBM attack on Israel, where they fired something like 180 ICBMs. Even when I saw that, I was like, wow. I didn't think they're that stupid. But apparently they are that dumb. And it's so shocking to see so many Iranians on social media celebrating Israel attacking all the extremist groups and the cucks in the West attacking Israel, right? It's like the equivalent of somebody attacking the drug cartels in Mexico, and the Mexicans being thank you, please, because cartels make people's lives miserable, as we know from those of us who spend time in Latin America. And remember that, what's her name, that NDP retard, Linda McQuaig, when I was in Colombia, when Hugo Chavez was in power, doing the communist thing, killing people. 80,000 people went missing over a period of 3 years, and were assumed to be tortured and killed. And Canada's idiot Linda McQuaig and a few other NDPs go down and take pictures with this monster, and he's pro-freedom. Like, what is wrong with people in the West that they can't think? It's just shocking, but I have some solutions for that over the long term. So anyways, and I think this is also why you see countries like, the Abraham Accords, which basically was led led by Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates, but even people in the region are tired of all the radical extremism, and they want to integrate with the entire world, the Western world included, obviously for economic reasons. And these are all amazing signs. This is I mean, it's rough right now, there's no question. And it's really interesting to see people's bias. Oh, the victims, the victims. Well, there's victims on the other side, but they only see one sort of victims. They understand that, unfortunately, this is 100 years of Hassan al-Banna, Said Qutb, that extremist uh, view of the world that's captured the political entities in the Middle East that now are getting people pushing them away. This is the path to greater peace and trade between everybody. It's like you knew something was coming with Khashoggi. Like, Khashoggi frustrates me. Oh my God, the people on the left, like Russell Brand. I love Russell Brand, but when you start talking about Khashoggi and calling him a journalist, you infuriate me, and you make yourself look like a moron. Because Khashoggi, the Khashoggi family, is kind of like a mafia family in Saudi Arabia. They're not Arab. They're seen as outsider because they're Uzbeki origin. But they're a very, very wealthy, influential family in Saudi Arabia that were international arms dealers. So much that Jamal Khashoggi's uncle, Adnan Khashoggi, was at the center of the Iran-Contra hearings. Not a journalist. The guy's a freaking Muslim Brotherhood terrorist. And he was like number 3 in the Muslim Brotherhood. And once there was friction between the Muslim Brotherhood and the Saudis, guess what happened, right? And there's some other nuance there. But people's lack of understanding of the nuance and the fact that they turn on the fake news and they believe it, this is what it leads to: pure ignorance. Scott talks a lot about the Gallman's amnesia. And what that means is, when it's fascinating, I didn't know about this, so shout out to Scott Adams for bringing this up. It's when you see a news story, and if it's about something you're familiar with, right away it's completely fake. But if it's a topic you don't really know about, you believe it, right? And when you're not informed on a topic and you see, commentary on the Middle East because you're ignorant of the Middle East and its complexities, then you're just going to believe what's there, right? And then there's coupled with the propaganda. Like, I always remember this little kid when I realized that, this is all fake. Because what you would see on CBC is you would see a story on, it's always the same thing. Israel gets attacked, then Israel responds. Once Israel responds, they turn on the cameras. Because as Yuri Bezmenov said, even when he came here, in the late 70s, the CBC was all communists, according to Yuri Bezmenov, who had worked there. And you would see, like, this is the art of persuasion or propaganda or brainwashing, if you want to call it. When they would talk about, when you would hear the word Palestinian, you would see a B-roll of children playing in the street. But when you would hear the word Israel, you would see a picture of a tank. There's a reason they do that. That's what brainwashing is. Because when you brainwash, you need to break through your conscious and what's called your critical faculty and go to the subconscious. And that's what they did. Decades. Just programming people's subconscious so they react to stimulus. Because subconsciously now, we have a generation of fools. When they hear the word Israel, subconsciously they envision a tank. And it's that oppressor versus oppressed model. Anyways, so where's the positive in all this? It's just positive. This is the type of thing that people in the Middle East, on the side of Western values and freedom and modern Western interpretations of the world where we all kind of get along, this is what people have been waiting for generations. That somebody needs to push back against all the extremist stuff that had been growing and fostering from originally out of Egypt in the 1920s. And it's also really frustrating. Like, you see the subversive clowns on the right, like Thomas Massey, for example, who keeps pushing Muslim Brotherhood propaganda and complaining about, giving Israel whatever it was, $10 billion or something, or was part of a $1 billion package for their Iron Dome. It's like, yeah, hey, buddy, how much did you spend in Afghanistan? Gladly give it to some contractors for 1/1000th of the price and let them deal with the problem, as opposed to sending in American troops and engaging it, right? And I think it'll be done pretty quickly. So I don't know. I think this is all good things. These are all, you see people in the Middle East uniting around and making fun of Hezbollah. You've seen videos of Lebanese soldiers who kind of have been under the thumb of Hezbollah activists are now, you know, being not very nice to Hezbollah people on the streets of Lebanon. It's this is a sign of hope that that part of the world is going to moderate and it's going to move forward. And this is all it's great stuff. And then coming into a Trump administration, who I don't think is going to take any bullshit, but at the same time will be, I think, a unifying factor. So I don't know. There's friction right now. It's difficult. There's no question. But I think on the other side of it, the world's going to be much more calm and peaceful side. I just wish, if people are too lazy to understand nuance about the Middle East, then shove the opinions up your ass because you don't know anything, Anyways, there was a county somewhere where 100% of you mentioned that already, Tal. Yeah, I appreciate it, brother. All right, I'm gonna shut it down there and just finish it off on the high note of I think you're gonna see. I think you're gonna see a Trump win, and I think if you watch the Trump, what's his name, Joe Rogan interview. I'm still really sick. You gotta forgive me. If you watch the Trump Joe Rogan interview, you get a good sense of the moderation that we'll see in this administration, which I would argue the previous administration was pretty moderate as well. And I think it's something you can share with people who are still lost and confused. Like I know some people in the States who absolutely hate Trump. And you just can't get through to people because, again, people chase confirmation bias and they're stuck in cognitive dissonance. But those people even have told me they're not voting because Kamala is such an embarrassment, as has been the Biden administration. Well, if you have those people staying home and you have the Trump people motivated to go out and vote and get him not only winning the Electoral College, but the popular vote, then I think you might actually have a smooth transition. My only concern is that article that I put in Zero Hedge about the fortifying the 2024 election with with ballots from Canada. I think that's a concern, but as I know from friends around the Trump administration, volunteers and such, it seems to be they understand they need to win by the margin of fraud. And if they win by the margin of fraud, I mean, what's going to happen? Trump will get elected and they'll try to stonewall him just like they did last time. But I don't think it's going to be nearly as successful. I think it's going to be an uphill battle. So I don't know. These are all, I see nothing but positive stuff on the horizon. And I think despite the rhetoric we see on Twitter, as we know, it's gotten pretty extreme, which is why many of us are starting to back away from it. Check out Substack Notes. I think you're going to see there are a lot more measured people out there than you realize. And we're going to enter this kind of golden era of what Steve and I have been hypothesizing for some time of the Enlightenment 2.0 era. And I think we're headed in that way. All right. I'm sorry. I feel like death. I'm going to cut it there. I will be back to a regular schedule with this at some point soon. Just a lot of things are in flux for the next couple of months, but I will try to commit to the Saturdays, unless you prefer Sundays. If you prefer Sundays over Saturdays, let me know. I don't really, although Sundays are difficult because sometimes I get dispatched on Sundays, but whatever. Oh, and tonight, Not on Record at 8 o'clock. Check it out. As always, it's a great episode. This one, I believe, is Diana and Joseph together. So check out Not on Record, and there's going to be a lot more to come soon. So thank you, everybody. I love you all, and have a great day. And don't forget to be as kind and courteous and supportive and loving to as many strangers as possible, because your subconscious is always watching, and you need to show your subconscious that you're a good person. That will make your life infinitely better, at least in my experience. Okay, all the best. I got to run.